This one that I picked up today will not start. He says it can run on starter fluid. I'm sure it's a carburetor problem. I will check the oil real quick, I'll check spark, but it's a carburetor problem, I'm sure of it. So I'm just gonna probably dig right into that and show you how I get that carburetor off, which is actually very easy on the Subaru engine, and get it cleaned and hopefully up and running. Shouldn't take that long, so I'm going to start that right now. Okay, so I've only removed it was actually already removed when I got it, the air filter element and the cover on the airbox. I did loosen these bolts just to make it easier to record and show you. Before I finish taking this off, I am going to crack the screw here on the bowl and just see if anything comes out. Not much. I'm going to turn the fuel on and just see if we got fuel flow. No fuel flow. So it's probably a stuck needle. It could be as simple as that. So I'm going to take this thing off, take a closer look. The guy in his troubleshooting said he did clean the fuel filter, and I do see fuel in it. And actually this fuel line is missing a clamp and is cracked, so I'll replace that. But I'm going to open up the carburetor and just check the float and the needle, see that they're working properly, and if they are, then I'll just work my way backwards to the fuel tank. This is just the crankcase breather. I'm going to pull that off. And now this should just slide right out. Okay. And I'll set that off to the side. So now, this carburetor should just slide right out. It's probably stuck on, so usually the best thing that works is to tap it. Usually the gaskets won't rip if you do this, and actually there's some stuff here that's probably preventing it. So I'm probably going to turn you off and just scrape that off a little bit, and then it should come out. Okay, that gasket material has been removed, and now it's floating on these bolts. So next I need to get the fuel line off. It's a little bit rusty. It's kind of fighting me, but there we go. And this is probably going to make a bit of a mess. Okay, nothing came out, so maybe the problem's up here. I'm just going to turn the fuel on. Okay, that's good actually. So, I mean, the fuel line's still cracked, got to replace that, but I'll take care of that later once I find out I have a good generator here. So I don't know if you can see this, but there is some garbage in the bottom. The fuel too is pretty hazy, you know, has something in there. I think I see some water at the bottom too. So I'm just gonna let this sit for a minute and I'll let it kind of settle. But this definitely looks like there's some water there. Yeah, so anyway, I guess the next step is I'm just gonna remove the linkage here. It's just a spring right there. And this piece here actually is pretty easy. You just slide the carburetor out and you can kind of pop it out. So I'll try to do this one-handed. Okay. Well, first off, this linkage is in the wrong spot. Completely the wrong spot. You know, the spring isn't super important. It probably will work okay there, but it actually should be in a hole up on the top. And then this slides forward until that turns, and then you can usually get that out. There we go. And now this is free to come out. Okay, so I'm going to pop that bowl off and see what we're dealing with. I hear the float moving, so that's good. Anyway, let me take that bowl off. All right, it's probably going to be hard to do with one hand, but I'll try. I already loosened it a little bit. And same thing for this, just give it a tap with a butt end of a screwdriver. And a little bit on the other side. Okay. Not too bad. It's pretty clean. You know, a little bit of garbage in the bottom, but nothing much. Float level's good. Needle seems to be moving. All right, so for this test, you know, if it's like this, it's closed, so if I blow through it, I shouldn't hear anything, and I don't. If I flip it around, the needle should be open, and if I blow through it, you should hear air. There's no air. So I'm gonna pull off that float and needle and see what I see. Also, the main jet is right there. I'm gonna take it off. It kind of looks like it might be clogged a little bit as well, so I'm gonna do that. And also on the top, there is a screw right there, and you remove that, and under there is the pilot jet, which comes out. That can also get clogged on these. Usually it's this one that'll keep it so that it doesn't run very well, if at all. and this one is more for lower speed, or if it's surging, it might be that one that's clogged, or both. So I'm going to get those off, but first I'll start with the float and needle and see what's going on there. Okay, so I got the needle loose. Sorry, not the needle, the pin. All right, that should work. Oh, that was very easy, actually. That's good. It doesn't really show up on the camera. It's a very small hole, but I do see light through it, which is good. I mean, I'll clean it out anyway. But I'm thinking that the jets probably aren't the problem. It's just the lack of fuel. So now this comes off. Needle looks pretty good. And so does the float, nice and clean. The seat actually looks clean too, so that tells me that there's an obstruction probably in here. Let me just try going through this again. Yeah, there's nothing getting through there. So this actually can be somewhat tricky. What I've done in the past is I'll take a drill bit and run it down this part, and I'm not drilling the metal, I'm just using that to kind of dig into whatever junk is in there, and when you spin the bit, it will naturally kind of bring the stuff up and out, and you can take the drill bit out too, clean it, do that a few times. If it's right here, that is really difficult. What I've done is I get a wire that's somewhat flexible and try to get it to go around the corner. You got to be careful too, because you can actually end up pushing this stuff further in, and it's not going to come out that little hole. So hopefully it is just in here, and that's what that drill bit does. I'm not trying to push it in, I'm trying to use the drill bit to twist it and pull the stuff out. Like if you were drilling into wood, the bit naturally, because of the twist that's in it, kind of pulls the material out as it spins. So that's what I'm hoping to do here. So let me get some drill bits and see what I can do. All right, so this is probably a two-handed job, but I'm gonna at least show you the approach here. So that went all the way in. There's nothing there. So I think the next thing I'm going to try is to put a small wire down in that hole where the needle goes into the seat. See if I can free anything up there. Okay, so what I got here is an assortment of things that I use to clean the carburetors. These are torch tip cleaners here. Pretty useful, but they're a little bit too big for actually cleaning the jets. And I also have this here, which is good for like the emulsion tube or some of the bigger holes. And over here, this little wire is from a wire brush. This is actually very useful for the smallest little passages. For the fuel, I'm thinking a torch tip cleaner should work. I do want to be very careful because I don't want to mess up the seat, because the needle then won't seal it, and I'll have a totally different problem. And the seat on this is brass and not replaceable. So I thought I felt an obstruction when I first did it. Now it's definitely hitting what I think is the end of the passage. Feels like metal on metal. Let me see if this thing is any better. Yep, it's still a little clogged, but I can hear it now. So I'm actually gonna blast some air in, again going this way, because I don't want to try to force whatever's in there through this little hole. I probably won't record that, but that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I think that did it. The torch tip kind of broke it up a little bit, and then I blew air through this way and out there. Didn't really see much debris come out, but when I blow on it now, it's pretty good flow. Let's see if you can hear this. Okay, so I guess I'll show you this. I did remove the screw from the top. It was right there. And all it does is have a bracket that pushes this down and holds it in place. But once you remove that, all you need is a pair of needle nose pliers to kind of grab onto it. Kind of turn it a little bit while pulling out. And there it is. So what this has on it, there's some holes on the side here, which is for air, and there's a teeny tiny hole in the bottom, which is where gas goes through. So I'm gonna just use whatever wire fits, run it through the holes, make sure that they're clear. Same thing for the main jet. The emulsion tube on this one, which is the tube that goes up the middle, is not removable. You can see it right there, that gold tube. It's pressed in. Some people can get these out, but generally I don't need to try. It's usually the jets. And in this case, it was, I'm sure that this carburetor actually probably works. It was just clogged. But since it's apart, might as well give it a bath and make it like new. Okay, just a quick update. I did replace that fuel line right there and the fuel filter. The old fuel filter actually didn't look too bad. I can actually see through to the screen and it doesn't look clogged. In the hose, does have a crack in it. Also, the fuel line clamp was disintegrated. So anyway, just as a general practice, I usually drain the gas out. You know, I don't know how old this gas is. Put it through a coffee filter and put it in my car. Anyway, while doing that, the flow stopped, and I put more gas in. Didn't matter, wouldn't start again. That's when I made the decision to also do the fuel filter, and then it started flowing again. So I think this may have had a couple fuel-related problems. You might be able to hear now, it seems to be slowing down, so I'm guessing it is about empty. Hopefully not clogged again. Yep. It's just a little puddle down there, so it is empty. So carburetor is just about done cooking, so I'm going to clean up this mess, put the carburetor back on. You know, I did a few other things. There was a bolt missing down here holding the leg on. This leg was loose, and I checked the oil. It was low, not dangerously low, but I definitely was not full, so I did top it off. You know, I'm going to run it, and if it works like it should, I'll do a complete oil change and, you know, clean this thing up and get it ready to sell. Okay, one of these days I'll buy a tripod, but for now the generator is actually working pretty well as a tripod. So it's out of the cleaner. You know, not that much dirt came off of it. It was pretty clean. Sometimes these are a lot worse. I think I mentioned the last one I did was just full of gel. I can't believe that one worked, and actually the one before that. Terrible varnish deposits, you know, but the degreaser, you know, made it like new. In this case, it's pretty much was clean before I put it in. I've washed the cleaner off with water. Now I'm just going to blow air through all the passages to kind of dry it. Usually I use the air compressor for that, but everyone's asleep right now and the tank has no air in it, so I'm just going to use a can of air to do the same thing. Okay, good enough. So I'm going to start by putting in this pilot jet. Just drops in. Kind of push it while turning it a bit to make sure it seats all the way down and doesn't tear the rubber O-ring. Then you put this on, which goes into the groove to hold that still, and then the screw goes in to hold it down. Okay, good. Next will be the float and the needle. And don't force it, you know, it's just plastic. You just gotta line up the holes and then it should go without too much force. If you need to, you might need to clean the pin with a wire brush to make it go in a little easier. There we go. And might have to tap that just a little bit. Carefully, don't want to break the float. That should be good. So at this point you do the test where you blow into it. You know, obviously like this, you should hear air. And then upside down, you should hear nothing at all. If you hear anything at all, it's gonna flood. Perfect. Now we can put the main jet back. You can just snug it up, does not need to be tight. You tighten it too much, you'll break it. That's fine. This is just the bowl seal, O-ring, whatever you want to call it. Now I do have problems with these sometimes. They actually seem to shrink a little. I don't know if it's the ultrasonic that does that or the cleaner. I guess I could always put some carb spray on it and make it expand, but I'm gonna try to avoid doing that. It usually damages this stuff. Now, actually, I'm gonna stop here. I need to get my glasses. I wanna make sure there's no twists or anything here, so I will be right back. All right, 2 tricks to fix this. You could probably heat it up a little. If I do this, being careful not to pull too hard, it'll usually stretch it for a short time. You kind of have to work quick to get it back on because it does start to shrink again. All right, let's see how that is. Almost. Just making sure there's no twists. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so with the bowl, I just want to make sure the screw is facing, let me see, carb goes on this way, so I kind of want the screw to be facing out, this screw, so you can actually drain it. And actually this gasket's in pretty bad shape. I might check my hoard, see if I get anything better than that. Okay, so I found this one. This one's actually brand new. It came off a Tecumseh rebuild kit. I had previously tried to rebuild this. This is one of my first rebuilds ever. It didn't run right, so it's now a donor for the Mikuni. And I think it's probably the right size. Yeah, that'll fit good. So I'm just gonna scrape off. There's still a little bit material left here from the old. If you don't have a good gasket, it will just leak right out the bottom. All right. Good enough. Again, not too tight, but snug. So judging by this gasket, he may have pulled the bowl off and maybe over tightened it, putting it back on. Anyway, that's it. So I'm gonna bolt it back up. All right, I'm gonna try this one-handed. One of these days, I'll buy a tripod. So the gasket came off pretty clean, so I am just gonna reuse that. So the first thing you wanna do is just place this on the studs. Making sure the choke side is out. Now we got to put the throttle linkage on before pushing the carburetor all the way in. There we go. And now the spring goes in the little hole. That's right there. Perfect. It's important to check that it functions. So these springs look good. If you need to adjust the RPMs, this is how you do it. You just loosen that nut and either screw that in for faster or out for slower. Once I have it running, I'll hook up a kilowatt meter and put it in hertz mode, and you're really just aiming for 60 hertz. If there's no load on the generator, you actually want it a little bit above, probably around 61 and a half hertz. And then you want to load it to about half the capacity of the generator. So in this case, it's about 2,500 watts is half capacity. And then check again. You want to make sure at that point it's around 60 hertz. And then if you continue to load it, it'll probably slow down a little bit more to like 59. You know, so you just want to check that at the different loads to see, you know, if the hertz is kind of in an acceptable range. This has an AVR, so the voltage should always be fine, no matter what speed the engine's going at. But the hertz are affected by the engine speed directly. Anyway, so this is all set. I guess we can reconnect the fuel line. Okay, and next is the airbox. Interesting. This looks like maybe it was like a sticker type of gasket that they stuck on, but they didn't take all the backing off for whatever reason. That could cause an issue because this is past the air filter, so it could break off and go right into the engine. I guess it wouldn't harm it too much, but not sure why they left it like that. And there's a little hole here, which is probably important. No, too big. Okay. This gasket also survived. I mean, it's not absolutely perfect, but it'll be fine. All right, sorry, I had to pause you there. I needed two hands. I had to actually push the engine a little bit to move it on the mounts to get enough clearance right there to get this thing on. Okay, sorry, needed two hands again. Anyway, I'm just gonna torque these down. Got it set to about 50 inch-pounds. I don't have the exact spec on this one, but usually these get tightened down somewhere between 50 and 70 inch-pounds. So I usually start conservative, and if I find I'm having, you know, issues with it not running right, I will bring it up to about 70 before tearing the whole thing apart again. And then this one down here doesn't really matter. Just make it snug. Okay. So I'll put the breather tube back in. And after that, it's really just the air filter and the cover, and that should be it. Okay. and these clips hold it in place. Again, there's a bit of a clearance issue here for some reason. So I'm probably gonna have to put you down and do this. I'll be right back. Okay. This clearance is always tight on these. This one is tighter than any of the others I've worked on. It is not hitting, but to get the cover on and off, you do have to pivot it past here, and you know, it was definitely required two hands to get that on. So it's all together. Really only two things left to do. I guess first I'm going to turn the fuel on and wait to see if anything floods over here in the carburetor. Usually if it's going to happen, it happens, you know, within a minute or two. I generally like to do that before starting it, just to see if there's going to be any flooding going on. I'm not even going to bother starting it. And if that does not leak, then I will try starting it. Probably not tonight. It's actually very late. Probably tomorrow or in a couple days, but for you it'll be in a second. Okay, so it's about 2 days later. I'm going to try firing this up, and then I'll put a 3,000 watt load on it, see how it sounds.